My name's Evan Smith. I'm the CEO and editor-in-chief of the Texas Tribune, which is a new non-profit, nonpartisan online news venture. I spent nearly 18 years at Texas Monthly Magazine, a decidedly for-profit magazine. The last year as president and editor-in-chief, the previous 8 as plain old editor of the magazine. Right. And my decision to leave Texas Monthly was less about it or the situation in the for-profit media than about the fact that I had done everything I'd come to do and was ready to do something different after almost 18 years. And at the time that I was getting ready to make a change, the opportunity to join up with my friend John Thornton, the venture capitalist here in Austin, on his new project came to me. And I was initially reluctant to put myself forward as somebody who should come over here. I was instead going to help him hire people, figure out how this thing should work and what it should be. I've likened myself to Dick Cheney trying to help George Bush find his vice president. And then about April of this year, I decided to make the move over and come join the Tribune staff myself. So then it was like Dick Cheney looking around and deciding that he was the one he was looking for. And so I came over here over the summer. I quit Texas Monthly in July. My last day there was in late August. I've been working here now about 9 weeks, and we've built this website almost entirely from scratch in really 9 weeks' time. And we've raised 3.6, even a little bit more than $3.6 million so far to support the operations of the Tribune, which will have a staff of 16 or 17, I don't even know for sure, on launch day, 11 people, including me, on the editorial team, and we think we can do everything we say we're going to do.
Describe what's going to make the Texas Tribune different from other ventures that are out there.
Well, I think the first thing is, if you compare us to other nonprofit ventures, we have a little bit more money. We have many more people on staff, I suspect, than they do, and I think the people who are on staff are people with much more experience. Now, I acknowledge that one of the things that people in the nonprofit news world and in these online ventures will say is, well, you know, experience is really a matter of taste, and I'm not really sure that you need people who've, you know, been deep in the trenches on this stuff. We are setting out to be credible on day one. This is not a teaching hospital. We're setting it up as an operation that on the very first day can make news and can report news, can break news, and can produce all the many things across all the many platforms that we've gravitated toward. And so we wanted to hire people who we thought had real great reporting skills, writing skills, great big brains, and who had been through the Capitol many times that they were in a position to navigate without help. And so we hired the best young reporters from the Dallas News and the Houston Chronicle, the El Paso Times, from Slate, from the Lara NewsHour, from Texas Monthly. We hired a veteran reporter and writer who owned the leading political newsletter at the Capitol, made him our managing editor. We hired a very smart technology team. We hired great development people, and we've been blowing and going now for 9 months with the upshot that we have everything in place to do the things we say we're going to do. How will we be different beyond money and people? Well, voice. We believe in authorial voice. We think that you can make any subject compelling if you try to write it as opposed to simply present it. I don't believe that serious means boring. And I think too often when we've encountered this kind of material in other publications, they just present it kind of dry and don't go the extra step or two to make it compelling, and I think we're obligated to do that. I think the second thing that we're going to do that other people won't is we're going to provide not just journalism, but information and context. Context is probably obvious. That means if you have a story about subject X, all around it, human curation, not automatic. We need to be providing additional links, additional stories, any other material necessary to understand better the subject at hand. Information in the sense that you become a better educated and informed consumer of media in 2 different ways. One, by consuming news. The other is by getting access to the kind of information that insiders have. So we're building database after database after database of public information. We went out and got 80 gigabytes of public information from the state, everything from voting records by lawmakers to campaign finance, lobby registration, personal financial disclosure forms going back 10 years for every elected official in Texas, the complete state payroll database, every inmate in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, just building database after database that will be keyword searchable, accessible to anybody. They'll live on our site. And in addition to living on our site, as all of our other content will, they'll be given away for free to newspapers, to for-profit radio and television, and to nonprofit. We intend to be every place. Ubiquity is important to us. And we think that through being every place in front of as many people as possible, we will live up to our mission better.
That's great. And you've described the Texas Tribune not just as a news organization, but as a public media organization. Can you tell me why you use the term public media?
Well, I think public media is important because it connotes to whom you're responsible. It also makes people understand that your constituency is out there. We are not beholden to corporate shareholders. We're not beholden to some executive suite or corporate fat cats. We're not owned by a big company that has to maximize profits and minimize costs. We're not owned by a company that is looking to acquire market share. We exist to provide a service to the people of Texas, and that allows us to be freed up from many of the workaday concerns that make it harder to do business these days in the for-profit media. We respect the for-profit media, respect the work they do. We're not presenting this as a binary choice, us versus them. It's additive. It's us and them. And so, from my standpoint, that's the big difference between us and them. Is that we're a public media organization. We're not a private media organization, and that gives us an ability to just focus on doing good works for the people of Texas.
And you've also said that one of the lessons you learned at Texas Monthly was that failure is an option.
Oh, yeah.
So does the nonprofit sector allow for more of that?
I can't say whether the nonprofit sector in general does. We will. We're going to tell people on this staff, have already told them, you need to try risky and interesting and creative and untested things in service to the idea that we can be better, faster, stronger, and provide more value to the people who access our content. If you're hamstrung by fear of failure, you'll never try anything risky. And again, some people in the for-profit media are very good at risky and untested. Some people are less so, and the ones who are unwilling to take risks, I would posit, are unwilling because fear of failure is so prevalent at these places where things are just one or two failures away from entirely collapsing. They can't afford to take those chances. Thank God, because of our resources, we can afford to take chances, and we will, as long as they're in service to a larger idea.
That's great. And one of the reporters who lost their job when the Rocky Mountain News closed said a quote that I keep repeating to myself and discussing with others: journalists can't be objective about their right to exist. Now we know. I
completely agree.
We know that there's conversations going on probably at state houses around the country, but definitely in the House and Senate, the U.S. House and Senate, the FTC, the FCC, the DOJ. They're all looking at what the future of journalism holds and how they can support a robust free press that protects the First Amendment, supports innovation, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think the role of journalists around the country should be as these discussions go on?
Well, I don't know how I feel about the idea of tax breaks for for-profit companies. I certainly appreciate any effort to be creative in figuring out how to solve the financial situations that newspapers find themselves in. I think, generally speaking, journalists should be pro-journalism. Journalists should be out there advocating for, fulminating about the need for ambitious, aggressive, robust journalism in the public interest. The kind that brings context and insight and perspective to communities about big issues that affect them, that brings accountability to elected officials who come to, in our case, Austin or Washington, representing Texas and Texans, and go back home 2 or 4 years later, and the people back home have no idea what they've done or have not done over those 2 or 4 years. And so the default is to say, okay, well, let's just send them back up there. There's no accountability in thinking you can operate without anybody paying attention, without any oversight. And whatever problems the newspapers have managed to avoid, one of the things I think even they would acknowledge is that they have fewer people and fewer pages, and therefore fewer opportunities to cover the great number of elected officials who represent their readership area. The result is that those guys get reelected all the time, and maybe they deserve to. But we need, as journalists, to be advocating for more journalism, not less. Better journalism, not worse. More aggressive, not less. More ambitious, not less. And we ought to be willing to do just about whatever it takes to get it.
Great. And where can our readers find out more information about the Texas Tribune?
If you go to texastribune.org, you will come to our site.